The actual unemployment number is 4.3%, but you and I both know that the U6 number, people that have looked for work longer than a year, is 7.9%. That's a big number, and that's a number when you and I were kids in 1982, when Reagan was in the middle of a deep recession, he had a 10% unemployment number. We were talking about it like it was a catastrophe. We were both in college at the time, but now we fudged the numbers a little bit. That 4.3% number is understated, but it's a big number. Should we be fearing that? I mean, maybe the market will shake that off as well. I don't know. You tell me.
From an ethical perspective, we could debate that a long time. From a market perspective, it means companies are going to need less people to do more work. Profit margins are going up. The stock market is going higher. Big picture. This is an AI revolution.
Welcome to All Things Markets with me, Anthony Scaramucci.
And me, Mike Novogratz.
God bless you, Mike Novogratz. Okay, Michael, it's 10:30 in the morning, and it's Tuesday, April the 28th. We've gotten through another attempted assassination. That's 3 in less than 2 years of President Trump. And looks like the markets don't care. I mean, that's one of the weird things about it. We're normalizing the abnormal. But Michael, something on our radar screen, a lot of our listeners are asking. And by the way, our listener and fan base is growing, so kudos to everybody. Thank you for tuning in. But Michael, there's $166 billion of refunds that are owed to businesses, not consumers, but businesses. So Walmart is talking about 10 billion, Target 2 billion. You got the whole list. Some of these guys are afraid to go get their refunds. They're afraid of pissing off Donald Trump, which he wouldn't. Trust me, he was bragging about avoiding taxes during his 2016 debates.
He didn't pay any federal income tax. So
That makes
if
me
he's
smart.
paid zero.
But what's your reaction to this? And what's your reaction to
Listen, it's a
this?
stimulus. It's a stimulus for the economy, which is already growing fine. And so it's GDP, right? That's just what it is. And we need more debt to finance it. And so should be yield curve steeper and should be rates stay higher for longer. And so, listen, Kevin Warsh is going to get approved, I think, tomorrow or the next day. Exciting, new era. Hats off to Jay Powell, who I thought did a great job for his entire tenure through a lot of political turmoil. But Warsh starts. We know Warsh is a believer in the awesome capacity for AI to increase productivity, but he's also got a pretty strong economy, mostly from CapEx build and high-end consumption. And that's not slowing down, and this is going to help it. And so I think, it's probably longer than we hoped before he cuts the Fed funds rate, even though he had kind of given Trump the wink, wink, nod, nod, I'll be a dove. I still think he'll cut it this year because he really does believe that the productivity miracle is coming. But this, it's a lot of money, right?
Michael, talk about a lot of money. Okay, we're at all-time highs. I mean, we're slightly off this morning. Okay, the NASDAQ is off about 1%. The Dow is basically flat, but we are at or near all-time highs. The price of gasoline has gone up 35, 40% in the last couple of months, obviously a direct result of the war. I don't know. The war doesn't seem like it's ending anytime soon. Ed Luce writes in the paper this morning, get ready for a very long Iranian war. But the market is pricing perfection. So is the market have something wrong or something so right?
So the market got hyper oversold in the peak of the war, right? It got sold down and then sold down and sold down. And I remember when we had the first uptick, talking to my friend Paul Jones, and he warned me, he said, before you fade this, remember what happened with COVID. COVID had gotten sold down so much that after it bounced a lot, it never pulled back. It just kept going, 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 going. And we had the same exact thing here. From the low, the S&P, from the low, which was, March 30th at 6,400, pretty much in a straight line with, I'm looking at the thing, one or two flattish days, we rallied 14%, right? Between, March 1 and April 27th. That's a pretty high Sharp ratio, 8 Sharp ratio, 2 weeks for you. And, we probably got overdone. Now you probably pull back to 7,100, 7,000. And my guess is we pull back to 7,000 before we take the next leg up. I'm pretty damn positive we're going to take the next leg up just because of the AI pipeline. Again, another friend of mine was at a AI symposium on the West Coast with all the big dogs. Sam Altman, the Anthropic people, the Mythos guy. And what he reported to me was daunting. He said the general tone was, oh shit, this is going so much faster than we thought, that we are maybe as close to 3 months from recursive AI. Recursive AI is when the models make new models and make new models and make new models. Like and that was from one of the Mythos people who was worried about Mythos, right? They're just moving at a lightning speed. And, there's not a lot of regulation there. He said this group last year was like, no regulation. We don't need regulation. The super majority of them this year was like, we need regulation. He's telling me that the same week that Donald Trump is firing the entire National Science Board. And so we've got an administration that doesn't believe in regulation, doesn't want regulation. We now have an AI community that's saying, we're scared of our own monster that we're making. From an ethical perspective, we could debate that a long time. From a market perspective, it means companies are going to need less people to do more work. Profit margins are going up. The stock market is going higher. Big picture. Could it go down, like I said, 3-4% from here? Of course it could. But big picture, it's going higher. This is an AI revolution.
I'm worried. Let me tell you why. Okay. Meta, 8,000 people going to get laid off, 10% of the company. It's definitely being framed as an AI efficiency push. 64% of the Americans expect unemployment to rise in the next 12 months, which is affecting University of Michigan consumer confidence polling. This is a lot of pessimism out there. And it's sometimes when you get pessimism like this, Michael, it leads to recession. I could keep going. Amazon, 16,000 job cuts. The actual unemployment number is 4.3%, but you and I both know that the U6 number, people that have looked for work longer than a year, is 7.9%. That's a big number. And that's a number when you and I were kids in 1982, when Reagan was in the middle of a deep recession, he had a 10% unemployment number. We were talking about it like it was a catastrophe. We were both in college at the time. But now, we fudged the numbers a little bit. That 4.3% number is understated, but it's a big number. I mean, should we be fearing that? Well, and again, maybe the market will shake that off as well. I don't know. You tell me. The market seems to love these employment cuts, by the way. Let's just put it that way.
Yes. Listen, companies are going to have more profitable, road in front of them. I told you the story of my insurance company where the guy, I don't know if I told this story. I invested in an insurance company and he created AI Lucy. And he has 50 salespeople. They call the 1.4 million doctors and psychiatrists and hospitals and offices that you want to sign up their insurance for, right? And so they have two sales forces. One that calls the company, say, hey, we want you to take our insurance. And the other is, okay, where can you use that insurance? He had 50 salespeople. In a 2-week period, they sign up 90 accounts. He created AI Lucy, who on her own finds the account, does the homework on where they're doing, who's the decision maker, what they're using, what they're paying, gets in touch, pitches the the plan, negotiates the rate. All he does is sign the DocuSign. In that same couple week period where his 50 humans did 90 accounts, AI Lucy did 500. She's only 12 weeks old. Baby AI Lucy, 500 to 90. That's what's coming down the pipeline. The other thing, Anthony, that I don't think anyone thinks about enough, we delivered our first data halls to CoreWeave, right? We're building this giant mega campus. CoreWeave then will spend 3 or 4 months fitting them out before client ABC of multi-trillion-dollar, big guy will use that space, right? So we'll start in 3 months, and that'll be 130 megawatts of what will in time be 1.6 gigawatts, right? So less than 10%. In the next 2 years, all of this new compute is going to come online. All this AI revolution is happening on the old compute, not the new compute. And so the amount of productivity gain between how fast they're growing the models and how much power is coming into the space, we're going to see changes like we've never seen before. And it's going to take a social restructuring, how we think about employment, how we think about, but I know as an equity investor, my companies are going to be worth more. It's why Kevin Warsh wants to cut rates. It's why he's going to be in this hard position of, oh shit, I've got inflationary pressure coming from the Mideast, but I've got a deflationary pressure coming. But the big pressure is going to be political. What the hell did you do with all these people?
Michael, on top of all this, the biggest IPO in history, bigger than Saudi Aramco, is coming. You own a little bit of this. I own a little bit of this. SpaceX looks like it's going to be a $1.75 to $1.8 trillion valuation. But there's something going on at SpaceX that I would like you to address. There's a company founded in 2022 called Cursor. And Elon Musk has the chance now to buy this company. It raised $3 billion in 2022, but he's got an option now to buy this company for $60 billion. So talk about growth and this exciting AI. But why does he want Cursor? And what do you think the mega strategy is for Elon Musk? And is he a real competitor to OpenAI and Claude?
So what Elon has going for him is he's made his investors so much money over the last 15 years that whatever he says, they say okay. And so he bought Twitter. He probably overpaid for it. It's a data-rich dumpster fire of a news platform. If you I mean, we all use it every day, but it's and it is one of the biggest news platforms in the world. It's to me, it's gotten worse in terms of just the spirit of it, the mean spirit of the shit that comes across to Twitter. But that's not a profitable business. He then merged that into XAI, which is his AI company, right? Grok. Grok is probably in third or last place of the big four. He merged Grok into SpaceX. SpaceX has 2 monopolies, a spectacular business with cash flow. He took 2 non-cash flowing businesses, as a matter of fact, cash eating businesses, and jammed them into his baby. Why? Because his investors say you can do whatever you want to do. So now he's looking at his competitors, Anthropic, Sam Altman, who's his now sworn enemy, and he's like, I got to catch up. So Cursor is his way of jamming talent into XAI. Right? That's the only thing that makes sense to me. I mean, I'm not an insider in this stuff, but
What I'm worried about is like Google. You're old enough, Michael. I'm old enough to remember Ask Jeeves. I'm old enough to remember Alta Vista. I'm old enough to remember when
I still use Jeeves.
Okay, and I remember these other internet search engines, including Microsoft, who had Bing, etc. Bing, okay, And yet Google ate everybody's lunch, and Google became the search, and now Google's being threatened. Thank God they have Gemini, because it's now being threatened by AI in terms of performative search. But is it possible to have 6, 7, 8 AI engines, each of which are formidable, or is one gonna eat the lunch of the others?
I don't know. I think for AI search, there's probably gonna be one winner, right? But for, maybe for AI coding, for building websites, this is where I'm just not smart enough on the architecture. Uh, all our guys now use Claude or some variation of Claude to build stuff, right? I had a guy come in here who is a portfolio manager who literally built a world-class, world-class, world-class portfolio management system to manage his own portfolio over the last, you know, 8 weeks of a lot of Claude time. Uh, so good that I was like, "That's a business in itself." So the question is, like, what's the legal one? Harvey, right? Harvey set up, "How do I use AI for lawyers?" Are there gonna be all these new businesses? How do I use AI for management? A lot of that stuff, people are using Claude to build it. I don't know what they then run it on, and so I don't know how the architecture is gonna play out. I don't think we're gonna know the answer for a few years, and so you still gotta have bets on multiple horses, right? Claude looks like ahead, but then someone has an innovation. Um, I mean, I'm told Anthropic's up to $1 trillion in valuation, raising money now, or at least trading in the secondary. Uh, they were 350, literally like bat your eyes, 2 months ago? Um, it does feel frothy in terms of the excitement, but, like, the shit is happening and is changing every business. But it's a good question. I didn't give you a good answer.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, listen, for me, I'm sort of, you got to own them because one of them is going to be the best. But if you own all of them, you're going to be okay. That's sort of me. I feel like you have to be in the space, even if
But
there
you
is a bubble. Am
but
I
you're
wrong?
now at none of these are at low valuations. You're not like, "Oh, this is my hedge. I'm buying the" like, when I was 1999, 2000, for a brief shining moment, I was in charge of Latin America at Goldman Sachs, and that was the last part of the internet bubble. Literally, the last hurrah of the internet bubble was Latin American internet, and I remember going to the, management committee, still with my I was supposed to be like an investment banker, asset man, running the whole shop, but I still had the mindset of a trader. And I was like, "Guys, I got a great idea. We should make all these venture investments in this space, and we should sell all the public companies." Uh, there were 3 or 4 companies with crazy valuations. And, of course, the bankers were like, "Dude, those are our clients. You can't say that." And I was like, "No, but they're trading at these crazy valuations, and if those valuations hold, this giant group of venture, possibilities are gonna be explosive. So we'll make 10x on this that we can lose on a short, and if I'm right and this is a bubble, the short will collapse and we'll make" it was a perfect symmetrical win both ways. And, of course, I got thrown out of the room because that's not what bankers do. But we're a little bit in that world again. You gotta be careful being long at the top all this stuff. You're almost better finding what are the other companies that are gonna do well once the valuations get so high. Again, I have this instinct that NVIDIA becomes a $10 trillion company, and that's probably ringing the bell. I just that's what great bubbles feel like. Um, but you never know. So I asked you this question. We both own SpaceX. Uh, I had some in one SPV. It's worth a ton of money right now. And I got a call yesterday. The last valuation, Mark, was 1.25 trillion. Said I'll take the whole thing, no commission, no nothing, no fees at 1.5 trillion. Versus waiting for the IPO at 1.7 and then having been being locked up for 6 months. Where would you sell your SpaceX or half of your SpaceX now? What's your price?
Well, listen, that's been the mistake of my career, in my opinion. Okay, so the mistake of my career is selling things too early. I sold things in my life. I'm embarrassed to tell you this. I bought JP Morgan in 2002. If I had just held it, Michael, the dividend yield on JP Morgan every year would be the full return on capital for the price that I bought it. Okay, but I didn't. I sold it and I ended up doing something with it that was probably stupid and probably put it in a venture capital where I got a goose egg. So to me, I think even though the valuation is ridiculous, Elon Musk is a champion of value creation. And so I'm going to hold my SpaceX. I'm going to hold it through the 6 months. And we just did a secondary transaction at SkyBridge, similar to that, where an RIA that we're close to, we crossed a private investor, SpaceX, to an RIA and an SPV at a $1.6 trillion valuation.
Got it. So I certainly shouldn't sell at 1.25.
So I don't think so. So to me, I mean, that's me. So I mean, what do I know? But then again, I'm saying that there's always a doctrine of unintended consequences. I've been humbled by markets and humbled by life, but my Anthropic is one of the more interesting stories. I'm not patting myself on the back, by the way, because I have a phone book of zeros, Michael. But because of Sam Bankman-Fried, our famous former friend who's now in jail for 25 years, I have a small investment. I put $50,000 into Anthropic at I think it was a $18 billion valuation, and so the only thing is, I have no balls. Why didn't I put a 500,000 or 1,000,000? Of course, I didn't have the balls or the strength to do that, but just look at that investment. And for me, I use Claude every day, so I'm not going to be selling that one either.
Yeah. So I've had a different philosophy in that I have done well in crypto by selling, not buying when things get crazy. Not everything. Never sell everything or you shoot yourself, but scaling out. Like, listen, I told this story recently to some philanthropy people. I made my first real big philanthropic donation after a 12-day silent meditation. It was the hardest thing in my life. I talk nonstop, so I literally had to sit there silent for 12 months, 12 days. The harder part than sitting silent, which is really hard, was no phone. My phone is locked in a safe. And while I wasn't working full time, I had a lot of risk on. So I get out of the 12-day silent meditation, and my wife had flown over to see me. I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm supposed to be so happy to see my wife, but I'm like, now that's standing in between me and my phone. So I hug her to say thank you, but I was like, would you mind? I just see the phone. So I look at my phone, and when I had gone in, Ethereum was, I think, 150, and I come out, it's 350. It had one of those parabolic ones. And Bitcoin had gone up, and dollar yen had gone down. Every position, 9 out of 9 positions were winners. It might have been the most productive 12 days of my life. So I quietly called my guy in New York and sold about a third of my Ethereum at 330. Maybe even more than that, probably a third. And that was enough to buy my first plane. And I bought a G550. And I made an equal contribution to charity because, like you, I'm a good Catholic, and I didn't want to feel guilty about
Yeah.
spoiling
Well,
myself.
I try to give the money away. Yeah, you got to give the money away. I'm
Yeah,
with you.
so the one-to-one, that was a good thing there. But it got me into flying private, which is a very nice luxury, but it also got me into the whole philanthropy game in a real way, and that I've spent a lot more than the jet on the philanthropy. But people all the time say, "Oh my god, that's the most expensive jet," got up to 3,000, that's you pay 10 times. I never thought like that. I thought I bought it at a dollar. This paid for all kinds of stuff, and I never sold it
But
all.
listen, I mean, it's just it's good discipline. I'm not saying that. I just think that for people, if you own high quality, stay in it, and less friction seems to do better. Also, you got low tax bases. A lot of this stuff. I mean, I have a low tax basis in Anthropic and SpaceX now. I don't want to be selling that stuff. I
Yeah, I
paying
think
enough money
people
to
make a
Uncle Sam.
mistake sometimes, though, of holding on to things they shouldn't just because of tax. I'm not saying, listen, I think Anthropic could be one of those companies that changed the world forever, uh, but it's now a trillion, right? And it does seem like it's eating up the world, And so I don't have Anthropic, frustratingly, and I don't think I'd be selling it. Uh, SpaceX at 1.7, that's, they're doing 14 billion of revenue. 14 times 10 is under 40, 1.4, yeah. That's 120 times revenue. Listen, he did it with Tesla. 'Cause I don't wanna fade Elon, but it's not an easy double from there, right? And there are other things that you can buy that are easy doubles. And so I at least think take some chips off the table, right? Pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered.
Oh, I'm with you. And listen, it's the right way to think about things.
That might be my next tattoo, chips off the table.
All right. Well, you'll have to tell me what part of your anatomy you're putting it in.
I don't have that
Hopefully,
many spaces left.
hopefully it's in your most flattering part of your anatomy. But Michael, before we go, talk a little bit about the economic dashboard. So rate cuts coming, even though oil prices are up and there's some tweaking of inflation. Yeah, rate cuts coming.
Well, rate hikes coming in Europe, because they don't have a dual mandate, they've got an inflation mandate. Uh, I don't think they hike in April, but I think they pause in April, and I think they probably go in June. My guess is they do 125, maybe 2, and then they're like, "Why do we do that?" Because this war will end at one point, and oil will go back down. Um, the US doesn't have a stomach for a prolonged war. Uh, so I do think we'll end this war at one point. If we don't, I'm wrong on that. Um, I think rate cuts coming towards the end of the year in the US, even though we're gonna have some really high inflation prints.
All right. Well, this has been an awesome show. We'll be reconvening again next week, and thank you guys for tuning in. And uh, and I'm sure all of you guys want to ride on Michael's plane. So just in the comments, just let us know.
Yeah,
And
I'm
we can
I'm sure I'm
accommodate.
gonna get fried for the plane, but,
It's not
sometimes
gonna
you
get
gotta tell the
private.
truth.
You coupled it with philanthropy, Michael. You're a smart man. So, guys, that's it for this week. But listen, on Friday we're releasing our Q&A session. Mike and I spent time combing through your comments and questions, and we picked out some of the great ones. And so, please tune in on Friday for that.
Yeah, and the only thing I'd say on that is, I love when people use their real names as opposed to these wacko names, but just because, like, it's just a general thing. I'm more about transparency in life, but I'm just throwing that out there.
All right. Well, we got a lot of wacko names. We'll be sharing those with you as well. All right, guys. We'll see you soon.